In today's video, I'm going to show you how I helped a UK florist struggling with her corporate work to increase her profits and reduce her waste. If this is something you'd like to watch, keep watching today's tutorial. So welcome back to today's video. Now a few weeks ago I had a one-to-one session here in the studio with a UK-based florist who was really struggling to turn a profit with her corporate work. We sat and had a chat. We looked at previous designs she'd been making and the process she uses to buy flowers, and we narrowed down 5 factors that I would consider really important when doing corporate work, and I'm going to talk to you about those today. Happily, several weeks later, that florist has now turned a good profit with her corporate work and she's really reduced her waste. And I'm hoping that the 5 pointers that I'm going to talk to you today are going to help you really understand how to buy flowers, how to choose containers, and how to be more successful in the industry. My first pointer is going to be choosing containers. This one we might have seen on the channel before, but this is a type of container that I think would be great for a range of corporate work. And by corporate work, I mean hotels, restaurants, it might be hairdressers, doctor surgeries, and quite often it's designs that you replace on a weekly basis. And what you really need to consider with containers, that you have bases that can be adapted, that are fairly versatile and can move from one venue to the next and display different styles. Bases need to be quite sturdy. You need to decide whether or not they're going to hold floral foam or whether you're going to go wire netting. And I'll talk to you about the environmental factors that we need to consider a little bit later on. But I've chosen quite a sturdy wooden container. I know it's waterproof because I've used it before, and this arrangement will need to be watered on a regular basis by members of staff, so the foam needs to be fairly easily accessible. I am arranging in foam for this arrangement, but that doesn't suit all corporate work. And what you can see I've done is I've placed a secondary container inside the base so that the floral foam sits nicely in the secondary plastic dish, but it also means that we can add water to keep it nice and fresh. But the beauty is that we can collect this the following week. We can take out the mechanics, the floral foam, whatever we've used, and we can reuse this quickly and efficiently to go on to a completely separate environment. And what my lovely florist was doing was buying a new container each week for different venues. So by explaining that we can reuse, adapt the containers, they can be used across the board. So you need to look for things that are very generic, not necessarily representing a particular season, can hold a nice piece of mechanic, whether it's floral foam or wire netting, and a container where you can easily access the mechanics and keep them hydrated. So I've used floral foam. I've got just over 1/3 of foam and it's been typed in nice and securely to be transported to the venue, bearing in mind that you might have a driver delivering for you and you have to have all this nice and secure and really firm. So my first tip is to reuse containers. Look for things that are really versatile and that can be adapted for different seasons and different locations. My flower combination for today's arrangement is really quite vibrant and zingy, and this container suits that style. I could also do something very free-flowing and organic in it as well, so I know this is going to get me through lots of different events and different occasions. So the idea with corporate floral designs, so floral designs that might be going to a hotel or a reception, they need to be quite impressive and the perceived value needs to be quite good. So you can do a large design but maybe not use quite as many flowers and be clever with repurposing, reusing, or storing up items that you can use across the board. Now I'm going to start today with a lovely vibrant yellow Arum lily. I think this one was Captain Solo. It has a really beautiful green stripe down the back, and what I loved about these was they were something different. They weren't just standard run-of-the-mill flower that you can find anywhere. So when this is displayed in an office, this is going to a corporate office, then it's going to really stand out. It's going to look magnificent and impressive. It's not the standard flowers that you're going to get in a supermarket. It's something that not everybody is going to see. And what I'm going to do with this one is almost create that formalinear style. And if you're not familiar with formalinear, pop back here because I do a more in-depth video on it. But The Arum lily for me really stood out as being something a bit different. The colour is really zingy and vibrant, and it's really going to suit the colour palette of the office that I'm taking it to. And with the warmth of my hand, I can slightly encourage the stem to form a bit of a curve. There's more than one way of doing this, but this is the method that I prefer. And that's going to give me a nice, interesting curved flower. Now, this part of the demonstration, I'm going to talk to you about sourcing flowers and how you can get the best value for money. But before I do that, remember, with a soft stem flower like an arum lily or a tulip, you need to cut it straight to go into the foam. Otherwise, you're going to find it's going to snap and turn to mush on the bottom when you're inserting it in. So 2 flowers extended out beyond the container. They're secure in the floral foam, and I'm going to balance that off lower down on the opposite side with some more arum lilies. So my foam for today is below the level of my container, so that means I don't have to have lots of messy foliages around the outside. And you might have picked up with the overhead camera that I've just added some moss down the side here. This stops the plastic container sliding around. It'll be much easier when it's delivered, and it'll be easier for the driver if he wants to carry them in 2 separate parts, because he can take the bottom section out. But what I'm not doing in today's arrangement is creating that really formal structure where I have flowers matching on either side, or whether I have an outline shape. Now we're going back to chat a little bit about the sourcing of flowers, and my lovely lady that came here to have a lesson realised after chatting with me that when she was ordering flowers, she almost had a preconceived idea in her head. There were certain flowers that she was looking for, there were certain colour combinations that she was trying to buy, and that was reducing her ability to buy bargains and flowers that may be a little bit cheaper in price because they were seasonal and there maybe have been a glut of them. So my second tip when sourcing flowers and foliages is not to look for a specific flower or a specific colour. Think a little bit outside the box. Go into the sections if you're lucky enough to be able to order your flowers online. Start by choosing flowers by price and start at the bottom end of the pricing scale so that you're looking at the cheaper flowers first, and you might find some bargains. So Xanthidisha or the calla lily are in season at the moment, so these were a particularly good price, probably half the price that they can be at certain times of the year. So I thought it was a really good opportunity for me to use the calla lily while creating that really dramatic look. And this sort of started off then my colour palette. So the yellow was my first choice, and then I looked for flowers that were going to be really bright and zingy alongside. And what I've done here is I've created that internal triangle that I've talked about before, and I've done a grouping of 2 and a grouping of 3. Not symmetrical and not balanced, but it creates that real drama and that really interesting effect. So when you're sourcing your fresh flowers, you need to have materials that are going to last particularly well. So you're looking for those robust, heavier flowers. Avoid anything that's soft stemmed, that doesn't have a long lifespan, or flowers that don't survive in very warm conditions. So for argument's sake, if they're going into an office and the office has a lot of heating on, then your prettier flowers, your flowers like peonies, large open roses, are maybe not going to last as well as you would like them to be. So product knowledge is really important when you're buying. And here I've got 2 amazing flowers that are going to last really well in warm temperatures. I've got the Chrysanthemum Bloom, which is beautifully fresh, nice and vibrant, and then I've got the contrasting yellow Xanthidisha lilies. And what my client was also doing when she was buying flowers is she was buying far too many, and she was worried that maybe things would come in damaged, so she was buying an extra bunch, but then she wasn't generating sales with those spare flowers. So if you are buying extra flowers because you're a bit nervous that some of them are going to come in damaged and they're not going to be perfect, that's okay, but you need to sell them on. So you need to create impulse designs in your shop. You need to have a bit of social media buzz and have a product where you can pass those items on. It's no good buying flowers because you think they're a bargain and then they sit in your back room and they don't get sold. Buying is a really important factor. It's a skill that you develop over time, and it's really important to help you turn a profit. So on this side, I've got 3 chrysanthemums. The stems are clearly visible. That's part of the design. I'm not going to try and hide them, which means I'm not using excessive amount of foliages to cover the stem. This is all a form linear style where you really do have to appreciate that gorgeous stem as much as the flower head. Now you'll hear me talk lots about trying to link the colour in the base to the flowers in the top, and I'm not going to succeed with that today because my flowers are really vibrant, but I am going to add a little bit of a collar around the base so that we've got a bit of an interesting texture, breaking up that very solid heavy base and my flowers on the top. This is going to do 2 things. It's going to help give me a bit of weight, visual weight at the bottom. It's going to draw your eye downwards, and it's also going to help cover my foam but without creating that messy, almost traditional look. And the benefit of this is, point number 3, is reuse items from one design to the next. And I'll chat about that as I add my greenery. So I've gone for what I describe as tropical foliages because they are materials that we don't see here in the UK. So this is the Rhapsis palm, and these are going to come in towards the back. I also know that they're going to last really well in an office environment. They give that really striking quality to the design as well, and by placing them towards the middle of my foam and angling it backwards, I'm going to be able to cover a fairly large piece of my foam with just 2 pieces of greenery. And what we don't want to do there in the middle is put lots of fussy greenery, lots of variegated or patterned greenery, because it's going to distract away from those lovely flowers that we've got towards the outside. Now the centre part of my arrangement is going to be roses. I have a lovely orange rose, and you might have noticed right at the very beginning I had some limes on the table, and I'm going to cut the roses down to cover my floral foam there at the base. But you could invest in some artificial hydrangeas. We know of course that they're going to last because they're not going to be looking for water. So big open hydrangeas there at the bottom, because we know that that's going to cover your mechanics really quickly. Maybe investing in some artificial blossom that you can use in the spring and early summer, and you can swap and change through different designs. I'm using fresh roses, and just like I mentioned when we were talking about sourcing flowers, these orange roses were a really bargain price, probably because there's a glut of them at the moment and the suppliers need to get rid of them. So even though it looks impressive and it looks like I've spent a lot of money on a rose, I've been able to use 3 big heads there at the base without spending a huge amount of money, and my floral foam is pretty much covered there at the front. So my next material is going to be the amazing trailing Amaranthus, and I've got this one in a lime green. It's going to pick up really nicely on the chrysanthemum on one side. And there's a big trend at the moment to use the Amaranthus. I'm just going to pull off all the petals, or all the leaves rather. So there's a big trend at the moment for using Amaranthus. So we make use of that lovely tasseled effect there at the back. So I'm going to squeeze this in between my foliage and just leave it draping there at the back. It's a really modern, sort of trending style of arranging the Amaranthus so that the tassels are really clearly seen. But what I'm also going to do is bring some towards the front. So we are draping down a little bit over the front of that container. This time I'm going to cut these really short. And just like the remaining flowers that I've used, I looked for flowers while I was buying that were a good price. So Amaranthus at certain times of the year is really expensive, and it would have prohibited me from using it in a corporate design because it would have taken me over my budget. And one thing with corporate designs that I maybe should have mentioned right at the very beginning, quite often the client isn't spending a huge amount of money. Over the year, it's a lot of money spent because they have an arrangement on a weekly basis. But sometimes you don't have a huge amount of money to work with. And that's where you have to be really careful with your buying. And you really have to understand seasons and availability of flowers. So just like a traditional arrangement, I've got contrast in textures and contrast in shapes. We've got a beautiful, very vibrant, zingy colour combination, and it's hopefully going to create that real wow factor when I deliver it. Now there are probably enough flowers in this arrangement for it to go out styled as it is. If you've got more money to spend, then you can make the arrangement taller or wider. But I'm just going to finish it off with some gorgeous foliages. This one is the Livingstonia Palm, and I'm only going to use one of these. And the beauty of these is they'll dry really nicely and they'll go a biscuity brown colour. And you can reuse those in the autumn, so you're getting to use your corporate flowers more than once, which in turn is going to improve your profits. So I have given quite a lot of information about containers that I would suggest you buy, but one thing I would recommend, and this is from past experience, is not to buy any glass containers. If you're buying glass, they're very fragile to work with. It's difficult for your driver to deliver them. They're hard to package in your van to get to the delivery area. They're slippery when they're wet. They're lightweight and can be knocked over. Are you guessing that I don't like glass? And the worst thing with glass is that you can obviously see through them because they're transparent. And if you're just arranging into water, they get dirty very quickly and they just look dreadful. So tip number 3 is going to be to avoid using any type of glass. So this video has a slightly different set of instructions to normal. This time I've been talking more about corporate designs and how you can improve your profit. And with all flower arranging, whether you're doing it for a hobby or whether you're doing it for a business like I am, the best place to start is to care and condition for your flowers properly. I'm using a cordyline at the moment while I'm chatting to you, and I've put some in straight as they are to give me some width on one side. And now I'm rolling a few, so we're just turning it over and forcing the stem through the centre of the leaf so that I've got this nice rounder form to place in the middle of my design to help cover my floral foam. But care and conditioning of your flowers is really important, whether you're a novice or whether you've been arranging flowers for a long time. Keep up to date with new methods and make sure you're using the right method for the right stem. And if you want to learn more about care and conditioning, then you can follow the link in the description box below for a care and conditioning guide that I sell over on the website. And really do your research. Go and visit the restaurant or the doctor's surgery, whatever it happens to be. I'm just going to impale some limes on some little spare sticks that I've got hanging around to create a bit of interest here at the front. So do your research, go and visit the restaurant or the hairdressers. Find out what the temperature, the sort of normal temperature. Lots of offices will have air conditioning, which makes the air very dry. If you're delivering to a hairdresser's, then you might find that the hairdryers are also going to dry the air out. So you need flowers that can survive in lower air humidity. You need to investigate where the sun comes into the room, and is it going to be landing straight on top of the flowers. I've got ladies here who do church flowers on a regular basis, and they've realised over the last couple of weeks that one of the arrangements is dying on a regular basis much quicker than the others, and they've realised that the sun is hitting it. But because there isn't anybody in the church first thing in the morning, they weren't aware of where the sun was entering the building. But now they've worked it out, they've moved the arrangement back, and it's lasting for a really long length of time. So this is a really simple version of a corporate design that I would do. Flowers that I know are going to last in the environment, a container that's nice and sturdy and strong for the location it's going to. The flowers have been conditioned properly. I've used Quick Dip while I've conditioned them to make sure that they've been hydrated correctly. And I'm going to use Crowning Glory, which is a spray that goes over the top of the flowers to help retain the moisture. So a bit of a different video for today. This is for the florists or the would-be florists out there. Most of what I do on the channel is aimed at hobby-based flower arrangers, but we thought we'd look at something different today with these amazing flowers. So as ever, don't forget, if you've got questions, you can ask them in the comment section and I will answer you as quickly as I can. Join me on that private Facebook group if you want to talk to like-minded people. And subscribe. I ask every week, but it's very important that you subscribe to the channel so that YouTube know it's interesting and it'll push it out to other people. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.